Hello, I'm Maddie, and today I'm tucking into a yummy salad. It's got lots of fruits and vegetables in it, like lettuce, and my favourite, tomatoes. Just here, I've got red ones, orange ones, yellow ones, and even green ones. Tomatoes start out as a seed, but how does something as small as this grow into an enormous plant? Do you know how plants grow? How does it work? Let's find out. How does it work?
Plants.
To find out how plants grow, I've come to a tomato growing farm. Here they grow tomatoes in giant glass houses called greenhouses. They have thousands of tomato plants here, which grow over 80 tons of tomatoes every single week. That's heavier than a space shuttle. And the rows of tomatoes are very, very long. But what happens at the very beginning when a plant starts to grow? This container will let us see what happens to a seed when it starts to grow. And this is called germination. So, first we need some soil. Then cover it up, water, sunlight, and something called carbon dioxide, which it gets from the air around us. But it takes time for a seed to germinate and start to grow. So I think we should film this with one of my special cameras. This camera will let me film something called a time-lapse. And a time-lapse means that we can film something that happens really slowly, but when we watch it back later, it will happen much faster. We start our experiment on day 1. But it's not until day 4 that a tiny green shoot starts to appear from the seed, and then a little leaf pops out. The shoot grows taller and taller towards the sun. After 2 whole weeks, that's 14 days, the plant is 10 centimetres tall. Wasn't that time-lapse brilliant? But what happens after germination? To grow bigger and stronger, a plant makes its own food. And this is called photosynthesis. But to find out how photosynthesis works, I think we need to take a closer look. Plants get light from the sun, water from the ground, and carbon dioxide from the air. Inside the plant's stem, water is sucked up from the ground through a tube called the xylem. On the leaves are tiny holes called stomata that let the carbon dioxide gas in and let oxygen gas out. Inside the leaves are lots and lots of tiny cells, and inside the cells are the chloroplasts, which have a chemical inside called chlorophyll. Chlorophyll traps sunlight. And when the carbon dioxide gas, water and sunlight mix together in the chlorophyll, it makes glucose. And glucose gives the plant energy to grow. Wasn't that interesting? Why don't we go take a look and find out how they grow plants inside this greenhouse? Sunlight comes through the glass roof so the plants can take the energy they need from the sun for photosynthesis. And then the glass traps the sun's energy inside, which keeps the plants nice and warm. The roof also collects rainwater, so the plants inside the greenhouse have something to drink. That rainwater is pumped back into the greenhouse, just here. Can you hear it trickling? Most plants grow in soil. But here in this greenhouse, they grow out of these plastic gullies that hold all of the water and nutrients that the plants need to grow. It's like a mat of twisted threads. The xylem inside the tomato plant's stem sucks up this water and the nutrients to help the plants grow tall. These tomato plants have already been growing for over a year, and because tomato plants grow up, it means that the youngest part of the plant is actually at the very top. Shall we go and take a look? This is Rolly, and he looks after the plants here at the tomato growing farm. And he's given me special permission to use this machine. It's called a hydraulic trolley. Up and away. Wow! Wow! Look at all of these tomato plants. We are so high up. These plants are 4 meters tall. And they're covered in these little yellow flowers, and they will grow into tomatoes. So to see some, we have to go to an older part of the plant. That's a bit lower down. Just 4 weeks later, and those flowers have now grown into tomatoes. But these aren't quite ready to eat yet. We say that they're not ripe, and we want to find some that are. The tomatoes ripen and turn red by making more glucose. These tomatoes are about 9 weeks old. They are red and juicy, and I think they look good enough to eat. I loved finding out how plants grow. What was your favourite bit? Do you remember the name when the seed begins to grow roots? That's right, it's called germination. Did you hear the sound of the rainwater being pumped into the greenhouse? And did you see how high the plants grew when we went up the special lift? Have you ever been digging in the garden? It's fun, isn't it? For most plants to grow big and strong, they need soil. But I've got a special type of soil here. It's called compost. But what's the difference between this compost and soil from the ground? Do you know how compost is made? Let's find out. How is it made?
Compost.
To find out how compost is made, I've come to a compost farm. We can make compost in lots of different ways. Inside compost bins, compost stacks, and some compost piles are so big they need to be moved by tractors. But here they make compost in big bags and big bins. Making compost is really important because it gives us a way to reuse some of our food and plant waste that could just end up in our bins. To make compost, we need a few important waste ingredients. First, we've got green waste. And green waste can be things like grass cuttings, weeds, there's some tea bags here, and banana skins. Next, we need brown waste. Here I've got some old egg cartons, cardboard, dry newspaper, and some dry leaves. Last, we need lots and lots of different types of bugs. Whoa. Look at all of these wiggly worms. These play a really important part in making compost. Wow. So how do all these materials get turned into compost? This is Ken. He looks after the farm and he's going to show me how to make compost. And first, we're putting in a layer of brown waste. Compost is made in layers, a bit like a big trifle. The first layer is brown waste, but with lots of sticks and twigs, which creates gaps so the air can move around it. Then we've got our green layer. This is our grass cuttings, weeds, and our vegetable peelings. On top goes another brown and a green waste layer. And finally, everything gets covered with a layer of brown waste. And I've got some dry leaves here to add to the mix. Make a lovely crunchy sound, don't they? Have you ever seen a banana go brown and mushy? And we say that it's decomposing. And that's what's going to happen to all of the layers inside this compost bin. But there's something else that helps with decomposing. Do you know what it is? That's right, it's the bugs. What can you see? There's a millipede. Oh, a couple of woodlice. Oh, a type of beetle. But let's not forget the worms. And I think we should take a look at one under my special camera. This is my special microscope camera, and it lets me see small things much bigger. There are so many worms. Wow, look at that. Oh, they look really squelchy, don't they? That there is the worm's head, and this is its bottom. And a worm can eat and poo its body weight in waste every single day. And this helps to decompose the waste and make the compost. But there are lots of other living things in this compost that we can't see. Things like fungi and bacteria. We call things this small microscopic. But they're so tiny, we can't see them with our own eyes or my special camera. In fact, in a piece of compost this small, there could be 1 billion bacteria. And just like the bugs and worms, they help decompose the waste. But what does the compost look like after a few months? Oh! Okay, so the top few layers haven't really changed much. I can still see some newspaper and some vegetable fruit peelings that look the same. If we go lower, can you see they've started to mix together, and that is really beginning to look like compost. But does the compost look different after a whole year? Yes, it does. Can you see all of the layers are really well mixed together now, and we have a dark, rich brown colour. The creatures and bugs inside have been busy decomposing all of that waste material, and now we have a lovely compost. I think this is going to make some plants grow really big and strong. I loved finding out how compost is made. What was your favourite part? Do you remember what it's called when the material breaks down? That's right, it's decomposing. Did you hear the sound of the crunchy leaves? And did you see the worms wiggling around on my special camera? So the next time you see a compost bin, you'll know how the bugs and microbes inside it are working to make that special soil. And when you next eat a tomato, you'll know how it grew from a tiny seed. I've got a box of freshly picked tomatoes just here, all ready to turn into another salad. I'll see you next time.
There are lots of things